Never before has the world known so many fears and phobias. Between claustrophobia, xenophobia, agoraphobia, arachnophobia, or dentophobia, the fear of getting sick, fear of flying, fear of driving, fear of cold or heat, fear of infinity or fear of God, fear of failure, fear of not being up to the task, fear of the unknown, not to mention the arachibutyrophobia, the fear of peanut butter sticking to the roof of your lips. There is now fear for everyone. Fear usually comes from ignorance, attachment, or trauma. Fear can be a protective factor in that it prevents me from doing anything, or a factor of obsession and chronic anxiety. Fear is everywhere. Cameras too. Especially since fear is one of the safest and most practical means of control. It's also the worst. It's in everyone's interest for us to be afraid. We are encouraged to consume, and the more possessions we have, the more afraid we are of losing them or having them stolen. The more you try to control everything, the more pressure, stress, and anxiety you feel. To what extent do I use fear to control aspects of my personality that I don't want others, or myself, to see? Next to fear, the key word here is control. One of the great mistakes, as soon as one embarks on a path of spiritual development, is to want to control one's emotions, thoughts, habits, sensitivity, anger, libido, ego. Spirituality and meditation are not, it seems to me, tools of control but of transformation. Nuance. C.G. Jung has clearly shown us that there is a close connection between the fire smoldering under the pot and the heaviness of its lid. The greater the pressure, the more the fire is fanned. Caught between these two uncontrolled forces, my emotions implode, and the more they manifest themselves uncontrollably, the more afraid I am of them. What is this dragon that I carry within me that I cannot control? To stop being afraid, one must first accept myself as I am. This does not mean to let go or to be careless in one's spiritual endeavors. Besides, what is a spiritual effort? Everything that contributes to rediscovering my true nature, the most beautiful and the highest. Fear is not one of them, nor guilt, nor shame, nor doubt. If I ignore an inner imprint for too long while repressing it in a dark corner of my consciousness, it will manifest itself in an increasingly violent way to prove to me that it exists and that I must integrate it. If I still don't do anything, it will become radicalized and push me to acts that I will not control. What should I do? Living in fear? Putting a virtual camera behind every element of my consciousness, every act, every word, or every thought of my inner being in order to reassure me, or to finally see this element that has become uncontrolled, to understand it, to accept it as it is and to integrate it into my life. That is to say, to transform something in my mode of functioning and in my identifications in order to be able to take it into account. This simple awareness and integration will naturally diffuse the roughness of the element in question. Fear domesticated by clarity and truth, it's a holistic approach to being. But do I need fear to be in my element, as Ken Robinson puts it? Of course, both fear and suffering are transformative factors. But do I need to suffer to prove to myself that I am moving forward in my personal transformation? In the face of fear, there are three reactions: fleeing, building artificial walls, armors, or masks, or face it, which is not always easy. Or to tame fear and transform it by seeing things and beings differently, and by integrating my own vulnerability. In this new perspective, 8 antidotes to fear. First, empathy and compassion. Fear does not stand in the face of love. Not to be confused, as is too often the case, with attachment, which feeds fear. Attachment to beings or possessions. to a self-image, to a position, to a socio-cultural identification. When one is moved by love, all fear fades away. And yet, there are many who refuse to love for fear of suffering. Second, authenticity. Know yourself and accept yourself as you are by seeing your own spiritual and unique inner beauty. And also, by appreciating the beauty of your own flaws, those flaws through which light passes. Third, seeing oneself as an immortal entity. As soon as I see myself as a spiritual entity, an energy, a being of light, I look at the great fear, that of death, in a different way. Energy doesn't die, it transforms. I, the soul, anima, animate this body and take care of it because it allows me to express all the facets of my personality. Fourth, getting to know my spiritual friend. When I take advantage of my solitude to meditate, I realize that I have a spiritual friend who protects me and helps me become aware of aspects of my personality, with their respective strengths and weaknesses. My spiritual friend is like a mirror of my most beautiful qualities. Fifth, understanding that everything that happens to me is the best thing that can happen to me for my personal transformation. The trauma I have experienced has created a deep vulnerability that is difficult to face. I can't ignore the trauma, but I can try to understand its deeper meaning. Sixth, knowing that my darkest flaws are at the origin of my most beautiful qualities. Instead of judging my flaws, I take away their importance by placing them in a broader context, because they are the distorted and transitory expression of my original qualities. Instead of denying or hiding them, I can use them to find my way back to my true qualities. I am like the lotus flower, very beautiful on the surface, but which draws its energy from its roots which are in the mud, at the bottom of the water. Seventh, meditating. Meditation helps me develop the intuition that allows me to both prevent situations and immediately perceive the beings I meet on my way. In doing so, I become more and more free from both external and internal influences, so that I am less and less affected by these situations that come my way. Meditation is, in this sense, the best guarantee against fear. 8. Gratitude. Gratitude allows me to maintain a positive perspective on my life, especially when I put it in the context of what many people around the world are experiencing. I feel particularly lucky, and I don't hesitate to remind myself of this every day, thus putting my various daily fears in their rightful place. Montaigne said, "He who fears to suffer already suffers from what he fears." And also, the greatest thing in the world is to know how to be yourself.